by Craig Dempsey, CEO and co-founder of Biz Latin Hub, a company that helps clients expand their business into Latin America. So Craig, thanks for being here today. Could you first tell us what you think is driving the renewed interest in the nearshore?
Sure, look, and thanks for having us, Peter. Look, what's driving the interest in nearshoring at the moment? Look, keeping it very, very short and simple, I'd say four things. Obviously, there's something you've probably heard about called COVID. That's definitely having an impact on the world. And, quite frankly, people are thinking further ashore. They're not thinking necessarily of hiring locally or even with the next province. They're open to considering options abroad. And that's obviously showing some interest in nearshoring. Obviously, US immigration reforms makes it more difficult to bring people to the US. So companies are now considering elsewhere. Obviously, another one that's pretty vocal in the news is US-China relations aren't the best, which is making a lot of companies reconsider how they're structuring themselves. I think it was the Bank of America Global Institute came up with something like approximately 80% of companies that currently have offshoring operations in Asia are considering about bringing some of that or most of that back to the US. And as you can appreciate, once that sort of looks at the cost and availability of labour, a lot of it will consider nearshoring as an alternative. So I can only see nearshoring being of interest now and at least into the future.
Absolutely. And Craig, there's been a little bit of political and civil unrest in various parts of the region. So what are the types of questions that you're receiving from clients in that regard?
Sure. Look, the very, very simple thing, clients are saying, how is it going to affect my business? That's the obvious question. And I guess the way of looking at this and the way I explain to them is normally in sort of three parts. Look, in the short term, most of the protests activity that's happening at the moment, it's very, very focused and concentrated against the government of whichever particular country. Yes, they have different reasons for it, but, the protests themselves are not out there trying to necessarily destroy private property and affecting business, etc. So really, in the short term, there isn't anything to be worried about. In the midterm, what we'll see is either government trying to appease a lot of the protesters, which may implement things that do affect business, or alternatively, and most likely, just a lot of government inaction because they actually can't do anything. And I guess in the longer term, they're going to have to tackle the issue. And the central issue behind it all is inequality, which is the biggest risk in the region. It has been for years, and I guess it will be for the future. And that's going to mean, extra cost, whether that's salaries, benefits, taxes. Somehow this question needs to be, resolved. And I can see that's sort of, where it's going to be. But fortunately, in the near term, no major impact. But in the longer term, it's something that companies need to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and hiring is one of the services that you offer as a company. How has that changed over the last 18 months as in response to COVID and other things the world's going through at the moment?
Sure, look, even go back 18 months ago, there wasn't a significant interest, particularly from North America or the US per se, in actually hiring in Latin America. Most of the interest was about entering the market and doing business. What's changed in the last 18 months is, I guess, two factors. One, what we've seen is a lot of Latinos based in the US deciding to return back to their home countries and in many cases stay hired by the US parent company. And secondly, a lot of those US companies are now understanding that there isn't a need for those people to be sitting in their office. It isn't practical to relocate those people to their office from within the US or abroad. So there's definitely a far more open perspective to hiring talent wherever it may be. And obviously from a time zone, cultural point of view, Latin America is quite an attractive proposition for such. So that's definitely what we're seeing. It's picking up. I can only see that sort of trend growing into the future.
Okay. And then finally, Craig, which markets of Latin America have grown the most, do you think, in the last 18 months? Has there been any surprises for you, perhaps some non-traditional markets that are now seeing real activity?
Sure. Look, when COVID hit initially, it definitely had an impact on interest in the region. What we saw was pretty much the interest in the region was centralized pretty much on Mexico and Brazil, being the two largest markets, which is not unexpected. As time has progressed, we've definitely seen a shift. And where we've seen the most growth, actually, on the small market perspective, has been in Central America. In some of those jurisdictions that may not have been considered before, Why in many cases? Because people looking for talent realize you can find it there. It's less competitive, perhaps cheaper, which has definitely shown some interest in that. From a larger jurisdiction perspective, we've seen a lot of interest in Colombia still. Colombia's always been traditionally very good at promoting itself, and we've definitely seen that show through. And the surprising one for me is Argentina. Although Argentina has a lot of governmental complications at the moment for doing business, there still is a lot of interest in doing business in the country. So there's a bit of a surprise, but hopefully that will continue. And with time, hopefully all the jurisdictions sort of see some of that success.